Welcome back to another edition of This Week in 3 Minutes. I've called this one Nice. And what I'm referring to is how everything feels nice right now in the markets for most people. It's actually an acronym, a banking acronym, coined by former Bank of England, head of the Bank of England, Mervyn King, and it stands for non-inflationary continuous expansion. And it's kind of like the Goldilocks economy, as I think someone else coined it. And that's kind of how we feel right now because things haven't gone too weird. But that's market sentiment, and as we know, sentiment changes. It's all based on feelings. Everyone feels pretty good right now. Their house prices, make them feel like they're wealthy, and their stock portfolios have been looking great the last few years. And most people right now are feeling pretty good. That's not going to be the case going forward very soon. I had to test my own. Everyone believes their own theories and looks for information to support it and tries to stay away from things that conflict with it. I like to do both, to keep challenging myself. And the theory that the world is moving away from the US dollar and towards a new monetary system with gold as a part of it. Obviously, I work for a gold company. I'm going to be biased in that regard, but it was that belief that brought me to the gold company. And so someone this week said something about those de-dollarization people. And I thought, well, I guess I qualify. So I want to list for you just the number of 5 things that happened this week alone that prove that the world is moving away from the US dollar. Number 1, the Marshall Islands, which is a string of islands in the South Pacific, recognized by the UN, announced they're doing away with the US dollar. They're not using it anymore. It's now a blockchain-based sovereign currency. First of its kind that I know of, first country to actually accept a blockchain-based currency. This is pretty intriguing. Wait till some of the bigger countries start doing this. Let's see, what else? The Japanese investors are moving away from U.S. treasuries. They're not buying them anymore. In fact, they're buying French bonds. A paper came out of Hong Kong this week talking about this SDR, the special drawing right that as a currency used amongst nations, not really available for individual citizens or investment funds or whatever. But they're putting forward the concept and the idea that this should be on the blockchain and it should be made available for global investors. This global SDR currency available for investors. And they talked about launching a fixed income instrument, a bond based on this international currency, independent of any individual government. This is really heady stuff. Jim Rickards this week wrote about the axis of gold, what he calls the axis of gold, which is Iran, China. He didn't mention Turkey, but I think they'd be in there. Russia, and these countries are now balancing trade amongst themselves using gold, completely bypassing the U.S. dollar. It bypasses the SWIFT system. It completely eliminates outside influence on these transactions. And so these nations, they swap stuff, and at some point someone owes someone more than the other person owes, and they can actually settle that out with gold. I think that's what's coming forward. And also as well this week, the London Metals Exchange announced that they're going to be launching a yuan-based gold futures contract. So this is really, really interesting stuff. It is, I don't know if it's the U.S. alienating itself from the rest of the world or if it's the world actually alienating the U.S. Maybe a combination. But the world is moving onto a more multilateral system that benefits the participants, not necessarily the issuer of the currency. Again, big picture stuff, but that's the direction we're going. And for those of you who own gold as a diversifier, you're going to be just fine. For those who are using it as a higher concentration element, I think this is where some real wealth is going to be made. And when that gold price gets going to wherever it's going to be, and there's some sort of double-digit bond available for us, that would be when you'd make your move out of gold, but not until then. Until then, hang on to your gold with both hands. On that note, have a great weekend. We'll see you next Friday.